Joining us right now is former CIA officer, national security advisor to President Obama's 2012 presidential campaign, Marie Harf. Marie, thanks so much for joining the conversation. What do you make of all of this?
Well, we're in a really serious situation here, and we heard very serious warnings from H.R. McMaster and from Mike Pompeo. And the American people really need to be paying attention to this, because there are a couple ways to resolve this, right, diplomatically. And what has worried me a little bit is that I haven't seen a lot about the diplomatic options here. And I think that's going on behind the scenes, and I think the president's upcoming trip to Asia will be very important in that regard. This will be the top of the agenda. But we've also heard a lot of talk about possible military action, and I think we may be getting closer to that with every day.
Well, what are the diplomatic options?
Well, the diplomatic options are the main effort. Listen, what has actually happened here between administrations is that President Obama, despite his rhetoric, never had the military option on the table. Nobody in our government believed it, and certainly North Korea didn't believe it, nor did China did. Secretary Kerry used to complain to me about the lack of diplomatic effort and realism in trying to deal with Russia and Syria and the rest of it, because we were never willing to ever strengthen the diplomatic effort because of the threat of military force. Trump's team understands that the threat of military force strengthens the diplomatic option. The main effort is diplomacy and economic sanctions. We now have 20-plus countries that have cut off trading with North Korea. We have China, who's cut off their major currency banks in doing business with North Korea.
That was a big deal.
That is significant. The only reason, and the only reason that is happening, is because Trump has put the military option on the table, and guess what? People believe him.
Yeah.
He executed the Syria mission. Remember, Assad used chemical weapons on his own people. President Xi happened to be down there when he executed the strike against that. He was not going to accept WMD, offending human civilization, because it's an international barrier. And he executed that on behalf of not just the United States, but the world at large. Xi sees that, and the very next day, he goes one-on-one with Trump. And for the first time ever, he says to him, I'm willing to work with you to denuclearize North Korea.
Right. Respond to that, Marie. Go ahead.
I think the challenge here is that it's a balance, right? Because, yes, a credible military option makes diplomacy better. I absolutely agree with the general. But the North Koreans, I am worried that they're looking at all the threats from President Trump and think diplomacy isn't an option for him anymore, right? When he tweets, sorry, Rex Tillerson, there's only one way to deal with that, and he's sort of winking and nodding towards military action. There have been a number of American journalists who've gone to North Korea recently who have reported back that they are taking these threats very seriously. And so we have to make sure that the North Koreans know that diplomacy is an option and conflict is not inevitable, because if they think that, miscalculation risks go way up, in my opinion.
Well, how do you, there's the idea that the president and Tillerson are playing good cop, bad cop, that the president is saying diplomacy isn't working and we have to rely on the military, but Tillerson is still talking to these people. So
I don't see it that way.
Well, the question is, do the North Koreans believe Tillerson speaks for the president? And that's been a question about Secretary Tillerson around the world with some of these public spats he's had with President Trump. Does Secretary Tillerson actually speak for the president? Some of our allies and adversaries are actually asking that question today, and that's not a good place for any Secretary of State to do.
General, what do you think?
Well, I think that's an overstatement. I actually believe that Tillerson and Trump, while they have disagreements on certain issues, these are tough, complicated issues. McMaster has disagreements with them. Mattis does as well. But once the decisions are made, the decision here is rather simple. We are executing a diplomatic, economic sanction-based option strengthened by military force. And the president is doing everything that he can to reverse the calculation that Kim Jong-un made when Obama was president. He absolutely believed, by holding the American people at risk, which was a departure from his father and grandfather, pointing weapons at the American people, that we would eventually accept that as previous administrations accept nuclear weapons when they developed them. That's what he was banking on. The calculation he's got now, Trump is president, and he is not going to accept that. So Trump is spending all of his time trying to get inside his head and make sure he understands that he's serious.
Are we being tough enough with China? They're really the key to diplomacy here. And some people are out there arguing that we should be pushing more sanctions on Chinese companies, on Chinese banks, on Chinese individuals. We have a story in today's paper.
China's going to pick it up, ramp it up after the Chinese Congress.
Or after the president visits. I mean, this is a big trip to Asia. He's going to China. He's talking to a number of countries about North Korea. It's going to be at the top of the agenda. This is a big trip for the president. A lot for him to get done.
Yeah, remember when he came back from the Middle East trip, he said he had $400 billion deals. No, really, will he be doing deals in the Far East? Thank you very much, Marie. Marie Harf with the latest there.